it looked like she was grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah, I would have 180'd out of there for sure.
Which is exactly what he did.
I'd have probably hopped out the window.
Which is what I would do. You know, I
Right.
mean, I've always said that I love the paranormal as long as it's happening to somebody else.
Yes, absolutely.
It's happened to me. It's not so fun.
Right.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.
All right, let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Healthcare Horrors. I am Ashley. I'm Ashley, a brand specialist here at Atlas.
I'm Alicia Carosella, your training and development specialist. Your veteran training and development specialist.
Can't forget the veteran.
I know, right? I'm
Right.
like, what is my title?
I'm Dolan. I'm a brand event coordinator. I've got a
That's
new
a
title
new
too
title.
now. Yeah.
Again, you guys sound so fancy. So last time we had the Beer with Atlas guys on here, Rich and Brian, and we talked about the Pennhurst Asylum to kick off the series of haunted hospitals and asylums that we are talking about for the Halloween season. So today we're going to keep on going with that topic, and we have another guest today. Jason, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jason Offutt. I teach journalism at Northwest Missouri State University. I have for the past 18 years here in Maryville, Missouri, sunny Maryville, Missouri. Before that, I was a newspaper reporter and editor for 17 years. And I've also written a number of books, 5 of them on ghosts, hauntings, monsters, and other spooky, creepy crawlies.
That's awesome. I really like how in your website bio you acknowledge that you are a nerd and you're into Star Trek and conspiracy theories and Sasquatch, UFOs, all that fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get into that just at a young age?
Well, I got into the paranormal in general at a young age. I was always a newspaper nerd. I mean, when we'd get the newspaper, I'd dig right into it. And when I was a kid, really pretty young, I started reading these Bigfoot stories out of the eastern part of the state, a monster that was dubbed Momo, standing for Missouri Monster. It sounds kind of silly, but there were a number of Bigfoot encounters over about a 2-week period in the early 70s. And in my head, I'm like, it's in the newspaper. It's real. This is amazing. Bigfoot's real.
Yes.
It's like if it's on the internet, it's real.
Yeah, I drove my mom crazy by disappearing into the cornfields that surrounded our farm home, looking for Bigfoot footprints. And she was a little bit nervous at that. But anyway, the possibility that there were monsters actually living and they were close enough to me that they were in the local newspaper. I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Super
and
cool.
that was monsters. Ghosts were another story. The house I grew up in was at the time, even when I was a kid, I was already about 120 years old. It had been a schoolhouse. And I woke up one day and wanted to read about dinosaurs, as many little kids do. And I went into the hallway outside my bedroom to get a book on the World Book Encyclopedia, the D's, and look up dinosaurs. And there was a boy standing in the hallway. And we lived 6 miles out in the country. There were no little boys other than me who lived out there. And I could see the bookshelf through him. And we stared at each other for a while until he blinked and broke my shock. And I turned around and shut my bedroom door and didn't talk to anybody about it for decades. But because of those two things specifically, I knew that there was more out there in the world than science told us was real yet. I still have faith, science. I'm counting on you. So yeah, I've always been interested, because of those two events.
Gotcha. So you saw a full body apparition at a young age. Do your parents believe? Did your mom believe you when you told her?
My mom told me she believed everything I said, but
just being supportive.
It took about 30 years for me to actually talk to anybody about it. And I talked to my mother and my sisters, and my dad was already dead at the time, but they said that they'd never seen anything. which I didn't believe, but whatever.
Yeah.
I saw it. I know I did.
State of denial, though. Like, I think maybe if I was a kid and I saw that, I would say maybe I didn't as well.
So you've had the opportunity to go to a bunch of haunted places. How did you get into a job like that? Like, you've gone places with ghost hunters and stuff, or do you just go to these places on your own?
All of the above. The newspaper industry is pretty stringent on things that we shouldn't cover, and if we cover them, we don't cover them with a straight face. Ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs being the ones that they don't cover with a straight face. So I really couldn't cover those in the newspaper industry. But once I started teaching and I had summers off, which is great, I could do whatever I wanted to. So I started doing a lot of research on hauntings in the state of Missouri. Haunted Missouri was my first book on the paranormal, and I went places that were purportedly haunted. Sometimes I went with ghost hunting groups, but a lot of times I'd go by myself and spend, from 10 o'clock till 3 a.m. in the third floor of a Victorian mansion that was once an insane asylum back in the early 1920s, waiting for a specter to appear in this spot where she killed herself. And me alone in the building with the lights off. It's just a lot of fun. I did quite a bit of that.
It's just a lot of fun. I don't know. Not for me. I don't think that's cool.
Dolan doesn't like the creepy stuff at all.
Yeah, I'm a little. I'd be a little bit creeped out for sure.
One of my favorite places to cover was in Nebraska. Was Jocelyn Castle in Omaha. Yeah. I interviewed a few people that had some pretty creepy things happen to them there, and just walking through the building it's gorgeous, gorgeous inside, and listening to the fact that this certain ghost appeared in pictures only next to the bride at this one wedding was kind of creepy because he was a creeper.
I was going to say, people still get married there, don't they?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah. There's weddings there.
Yeah, it's pretty gorgeous from the road too. Like when you drive around it. I've never actually been in there, but I have heard those stories before.
Yeah. So I was looking through your Haunted Missouri book a little bit. There's actually quite a few places in Missouri that are haunted. I guess when people think Missouri, they don't think haunted attractions. I don't know, but there's a lot of them.
I was going to say,
and that's usually people, whenever they think of ghosts, they think of, New England, in that area that's been, settled by, by Europeans, near the first, or New Orleans, or places like that. But wherever we've had humans, and humans have been on this continent for a long time, for thousands and thousands of years, there are ghost stories everywhere, and plenty of them. One of the things I did for one of my books, which actually Jocelyn Castle is in, it's called What Lurks Beyond. And I put a pin in the map and drew a circle 100 miles radius of my house here in Maryville. And I tried to find all of the paranormal things that I could within that 100-mile radius. And between ghosts and Bigfoot and time travel and demon possession, a couple of famous UFO cases, they all fit. I had enough to fill a book, along with a mind-reading dog. But the point is, if there are enough paranormal occurrences to fill a book 100 miles from my house, it's 100 miles from your house, 100 miles from your listener's house. Mm-hmm. There are stories like this all over the place. You just have to go out and find them.
Yeah, so you got into journalism, you started writing about these places. Let's talk about some of your fiction books. Maybe you didn't just release The Girl in the Corn. When was that? That's your most recent release, right?
Right, that came out in January. That's a horror novel that won the Independent Book Publishers Association's Benjamin Franklin Gold Award for the audiobook version. So I was pretty happy with that. It's horror. I love horror. Since I wrote about paranormal extensively for a while. I've got a nice background to base a lot of these things in actual folklore. And just yesterday, I signed the contract for the sequel to come out, and it'll come out in 2024.
Cool.
That's awesome. That's
Very
not
good.
the one that was just announced with it's got the white background with the red.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
it.
the one?
Face.
Yeah.
The red, creepy, toothy, smiling face. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary was just telling me about that. So one of the reasons you are on this podcast is because you're friends with John, our brand manager, and Gary, our brand content editor. And you guys used to work together back in the day.
Right. I would like to think it's for the quality of my work, but but yes, it's because of Gary and John.
Reasons.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Should we get into talking about one of the hospitals that you visited?
Well, sure. One of the things that I want to point out about hospitals in general, and I want to go ahead and put any care facility, whether it be a medical hospital, a mental hospital, a retirement home, any facility like this, just by their very nature, there are a lot of emotions in these places, and there's sometimes tragedy that happens. Anytime there is a place with that sort of energy, spirits sometimes cling. And it doesn't surprise me at all whenever I talk to someone about a hospital haunting. There was, I used to work in Blue Springs, Missouri, and Blue Springs Hospital is on the spot where there was a pond back in the day, and a group of children were playing and they drowned in the pond. And reports have gone through the years of people hearing children singing in the hospital where, there aren't any children supposed to be there singing. And that's a pretty common thing to happen. I wanted to do more on hospitals and hauntings, but it was really hard to get doctors and nurses and lab techs who are, they're scientists, they're serious science people, to actually come out and say, well, yeah, I saw a ghost. So there aren't as many stories about hospitals being haunted out there as there probably should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we produce a lot of content like around our travel nurses, and I've been talking about doing this for a while. Like, I want full moon stories, and that they experience a whole bunch of weird stuff in hospitals, be it hauntings or full moons or just weird stuff like that.
For sure.
Well, the full moon scientifically doesn't cause all this, but you talk to any ER nurse or doctor, talk to any police officer or any fire department worker, and they'll tell you that on the full moon, people go crazy.
Yeah. Yes,
which is where the term, and we don't use the term lunatic anymore, but that's where the term came from. Luna, the moon. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess you really do learn something new every day.
I am a teacher.
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk about Hillhaven.
Yeah.
I just want to hear all about it.
Yes. So the hospital that we're talking about today has a few different names. It started out as Putnam Memorial Hospital. Then it became St. Francis Hospital. Then it was Hillhaven Nursing Home. And then it was lastly known as Meadowbrook Nursing Home before the doors finally officially closed. And now it sounds like it's still just standing, something straight out of a horror movie. Like, there's still furniture and equipment and everything still in there.
Right. When I went, the person I went with, a guy named Ryan Straub, he's a ghost hunter, but he had a ghost group when he still lived in Missouri. He lives in Colorado now, but he had access to this building, which is terrific. If you're going to go looking for ghosts in some place like an abandoned hospital, make sure you have permission and are not trespassing. Okay, owners and police officers frown upon trespassers, so getting permission is important. Going in the day, if it's possible, is also important because you can see more things that you might scream and run and trip on. So, right. We had permission to get there because his mother was caretaker, because she'd worked at the nursing home when it closed its doors, and they hired her to keep her eye on it. And he took me there one day, and it was right out of a horror movie. Brick. Parts of it were 3 stories tall. There were vines growing everywhere. Windows broken out. He unlocked the door and we went in, and yes, it was just like people just picked up and walked out. Desks, there were filing cabinets with patients' files still in them. Desks with pencil holders and those calendar pads on them. I don't use calendars, so that really took a while for that to come out. I'm not organized enough, but yes, and in the kitchen, there were still pots sitting on the stove. Water damage had leaked in. The owners had used it to store a few things too. So there were boxes of books, and there were magazines. There was old clothes, and it really lent to the creepy vibe. A bit about the place before I went to visit is it had, even when people were still at the rest home, there were often complaints that people on the floor above you were walking around at times at night that they really shouldn't have been. But when they went to check on them, all the residents were in their beds, sound asleep. There would be people would hear shouting, people would hear people talking when others weren't around. And then it closed down. And the caretaker called Ryan. Ryan was out, and he was a teenager at the time, and asked Ryan to go by the nursing home because somebody had called her and reported that there was a light on in a room in one of the upper floors. And of course there shouldn't be. Now, of course there could have been, somebody homeless living there just, because it's a roof. But anyway, he went in to turn the light on, and he went through and went to the room with the light on. It was shining through the open door. He walked in, and there was an elderly woman sitting on the bed staring out the window. And he said, excuse me, you're not supposed to be here. And only the woman's head turned to see him. It turned, it did a 180. And he said she smiled, and the smile was wider than her mouth should have been, grinning from ear to ear. He said literally, it looked like she was grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah, I would have 180'd out of there for sure.
Which is exactly what he did.
I'd have probably hopped out the window.
Which is what I would do. I've always said that I love the paranormal as long as it's happening to somebody else.
Yes, absolutely.
It's happened to me. It's not so fun.
Right.
Right. He went in with his ghost hunting group a few times, and there were often times to where the doors would be open, and they'd walk down the hall and hear a slam, and they'd turn around and the doors would all be shut down this hallway. And when he took me in, we went through the basement first, which of course that's the place to go.
Of course.
There wasn't
the basement or the attic, yes.
Right. There wasn't any ambient light from outside coming in, so we had to use flashlights. We went during the day. Water had been leaking, so it was nice and damp, and there was a drip coming from somewhere up above. He told me while we were down there that once down there he had seen a number of shadow people walking around the basement, which we didn't see, again, which is fine with me. But the basement seemed pretty active. Then we went upstairs when we got to the opposite end of the basement. There are stairs that go up both sides of the stories, and we went up one side, and there was a box of books that I noticed that was sitting right on a step. Okay, fine. It's just a box of books sitting on a step. And we went upstairs. We went through the first floor, and the doors were all open. Didn't see anything strange. Went upstairs, walked through. Then we heard a few things, like sounded like someone walking. We couldn't find anything. It could have been some weird noise in the building. But then we went into a room where there was a curtain that was moving, even though the window wasn't open. Of course, there was no air conditioning at the time, so that was pretty fun. But then we went down the other side to go back downstairs, and we heard a thunk, a definite thunk, and we went to investigate it. And this box of books that had been sitting on the stairs, I mean, it was not leaning over, but it was now poured out on the stairs because it had turned over for some reason. That I don't know how that happened. The footsteps and the curtain moving, I can kind of talk away, but that box of books turning over by itself, I can't.
Mm-hmm. Just for context, for like anyone listening who didn't catch the names, so you're talking about Ryan Straub, Ryan Straub, and he is the investigator of Ter Fernath Paranormal Group.
That was the paranormal group at the time when he was in when he lived in Marceline, Missouri. Like I said, he's moved to Colorado now. I'm not sure if he's still doing paranormal investigations or not, but gotcha. Yes, he took me through, and again, some strange things happen, and I find it a lot more believable when things happen while I'm there.
Yeah, you're no kidding. And it was his mom that worked there for a while. So
right, Patty Cruzan is her name, and yeah, she worked there for a while, and she personally was witness to some of the patients are walking around upstairs even when nobody was up and around.
Mm-hmm. Good on her, though, for taking on that job to look after it, because I don't think I could have said yes to that.
Yeah.
Well, as long as I guess you've got a teenage son you can send there at night, it might not be too bad.
I love my son so much. I don't think I could do it.
Once again, that's like something straight out of a movie. Like, send the teenager to go investigate the light or the weird whatever. It all just sounds like it's out of a movie.
Well, the way you described it, as if, everybody just picked up and left, sounds a lot like Atlas MedStaff's office in March of 2020.
Oh, sad.
Well, the way you described it, like everybody left and we all thought we were coming back right away, and then everything started growing cobwebs and
people left their plants here and all the plants died. No,
we watered them. I think somebody watered them for a while, but
well, and there are people who've done research, some scientists who've done research on plant consciousness, so there might be plant ghosts around.
What?
Whoa.
You are blowing my mind. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that for real?
I mean, I guess
yes. No, I wasn't making that up. Yeah. There have been experiments done on plants to where a person would mistreat a plant. I don't mean stabbing or ripping it out of the pot.
Serial killer.
But abusing it, yelling at it, throwing lots of anger at it, and then leaving, other people coming into the room, and they would monitor the plants, and the plants would be fine. But when the person who yelled at the one plant came in the room, there was some activity with the other plants.
That's interesting. That kind of reminds me of when the Mythbusters, like, did you ever see this episode? The Mythbusters built like 3 different greenhouses or whatever. And then in one greenhouse, they played metal music. Then they played like hip hop. Then they played country or whatever. I don't remember exactly what genres they played, but then there was like an obvious like growth difference between them. And the only thing that was different was
the music.
Yeah.
Right. I've read about studies like they'd play Sinatra for this one, in this one room of plants, and they would play metal in another one. And yes, and there were definite growth differences.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told
I would have been 6'2" if I hadn't listened to metal when I was a kid.
Hey, man.
Maybe that's Ashley's problem.
I'm not that short. Travel size.
Yeah, but all this brings me to something that I said earlier. There's a lot out there that science hasn't figured out yet.
For sure.
And are there ghosts stuck in hospitals? A lot of evidence shows that there are. The problem is,
I've heard more than
ghosts
not.
are jerks, and they won't show themselves to science whenever science needs them to. So it's going to be a long time before they're proven to be real.
Alicia and I were trying to do a little bit of research on this place because we like to know like when it started and backstories and all that kind of stuff. But it was really hard to find stuff on the internet about Putnam Memorial Hospital, like when it first started. So thank you for sending over that article, and everything that we did find on the internet led back to your article, basically. Like,
okay.
Truthfully.
I would get excited, like, oh, I found something, and then I would see Jason's name on it.
Oh, it's
like,
that
I've
Offit
already read
guy, yeah. Well, and it's, again, my writing background is mainly journalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I did do my research on it outside of the internet. The thing about this hospital is it's been abandoned for a while. And the Marceline's a small town in the middle of Missouri. It's cropped up whenever the railroad came through, like a lot of small towns did all around the country. And there's really not a lot of history to Marceline except for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Walt Disney grew up.
I saw that. That's so random.
Yeah, absolutely random. Where did Walt Disney grow up? Marceline, Missouri.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
I also made the random note that the Exorcist House from the movie is in Belnor, Missouri. Now I want to go there just to see the house in person too.
Well, the Exorcist, the book by William Blatty, and then of course the movie made after that, is based on a story of a boy in Connecticut. And the boy was brought to St. Louis to a Jesuit church, and the Jesuits were the ones who exorcised the devil from the boy. So it has that Missouri connection.
What were you gonna say? Do you remember?
I was gonna say, didn't you go to that haunted museum in Springfield?
No, we were talking about it last time, but no, I didn't go to it. You got to go to it?
Oh, I didn't go. I thought you got to go.
No.
Darn. I was going to say,
well, if you guys want to go to
experience.
places like that, you have a benefit that I didn't have when I started writing about paranormal topics, because when I started writing, it wasn't as popular. They weren't as popular as they are now. And so many people were really tight-lipped about hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
I could not get a peep out of people from southeastern Missouri when I wrote my book Haunted Missouri back in the mid 2000s, because we don't have anything haunted here, and now we've got hotels and bed and breakfast. I mean, they promote, hey, we're haunted, come stay here.
I've heard so much about hauntings in Missouri, and a lot of cemeteries and specific things like that. So I think it's interesting.
Well, the thing is, if you had a choice, why would you hang around in a cemetery?
I mean, I would not.
Yeah, there are different types of hauntings, and the most interesting to me type haunting has to do when the spirits can go wherever they want. For example, there are 3 different places in Missouri where Frank James' ghost has been seen. Because they can travel, and I always like to tell people this, that if they go to someplace haunted and a spirit happens to like you,
it's going to travel.
They can follow you home.
Yeah, but
they're not stuck.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about. There's this, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a haunted museum here in Springfield, Nebraska. And my parents went and toured it, and I was pregnant at the time with my son. And my mom said, absolutely not. Like, I don't want it clinging to you or your baby. Like, it's not coming home with you. You're not coming with us.
Well, you know what? Good for your mom, because
really looking out for me.
Right, children tend to see and attract ghosts more than we do. We kind of lost whatever ability we have. But I've also interviewed a number of pregnant women who have, their children have seen ghosts, and they're like, oh no, whatever. And then they're pregnant, and then they're, oh, wait a second. What my other child told me was true.
Yeah, apparently.
Because they saw it too.
Apparently, when I was 3, I told my mom, we were in the McDonald's drive-thru. My great-grandma had passed away, and I had never met her. And I told her, great-grandma, like, I see her all the time. And I, told her that she talks to me and she tells me she loves me. And I had never met her.
Wow.
Yeah, that when my wife and I when our family was young, our son was 5, our daughter was 3. They're both about ready to get out of high school now, but we were in a small house and we were looking for a larger one because the kids were getting bigger. And one house we went into I absolutely loved because it was built in the 1880s, 2 stories, just a gorgeous house. And whenever a real estate agent took us places, the kids would both run around like crazy screaming because it's an empty house to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we walk into that one and my 3-year-old holds her heads up and says, "Pick me up, Daddy." So I pick her up and she clings to me the whole time through the house. And finally, when we're about done, I said, "Honey, what's the matter?" And she buries her face into my ear and says, "They're scary."
Oh.
And I said, "Who's scary, honey?" Because it was just me, my wife, and the kids and the real estate agent. I said, "Who's scary?" She goes, "The ghosts."
Oh my goodness.
And then when we got outside in the yard, she wanted put back down and she was fine, but we didn't get that house.
Yeah, I bet not.
Yeah, no.
You would have had a lot of issues. You'd have been moving out as fast as you
I
moved
think so.
in.
Yeah, my parents moved to a small town in Nebraska when, I don't know, I would have probably been like 13, but my younger brother, he was 7 or 8. And they moved in, they rented it out actually. And like for the first couple weeks, he kept saying that he saw somebody in his room at night who was like walking around.
Nope.
And my stepmom actually was like talking to the neighbor one day and was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I had to move my son's room to the other side of the house because he kept saying that he was seeing a ghost or something." And the neighbor had a 4 or 5-year-old child who claimed that he also saw a guy walking around in his room. Same description and everything. So that's crazy.
I hope that was a ghost and not a real guy.
I think it was. I think it was a ghost. They both claimed it was ghosts.
Which would be more terrifying? You
I
know?
mean, but
It would
what's
be
a
the
ghost
real
gonna
guy.
do?
Yeah.
People are a lot scarier than ghosts.
That's what I think too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was a. I'm not Seward, Nebraska. I don't think it's that big, is it?
No.
No. So a small town, Nebraska. A former student of mine, I interviewed her for a story because she grew up in a haunted house in Seward, Nebraska. She didn't see the ghost, but it would always throw her Beanie Babies around the room.
Didn't like the Beanie Babies, huh?
Didn't like the Beanie Babies.
I had an experience with a spirit attachment a while ago, and it's gnarly. It's a real thing. Like I've always been a believer of ghosts and stuff, but I never really thought of spirit attachments. And I don't know. One of my friends that got really into Reiki and like, I don't know, spiritual healing and stuff said I had a spiritual attachment the way I was talking to him and describing stuff. And I don't know, he could, I guess, feel that energy a little bit, but that was kind of gnarly. It was from Hummel Park.
Yeah,
So,
I believe that.
I haven't been back to Hummel Park since.
I used to run for cross country practice in Hummel Park.
It's so pretty there, but if you think about it, there's no wildlife there.
Mm-mm.
You don't really think about it.
But there should be.
Yeah, there should be squirrels. You know, it's
Is that in
beautiful
Omaha?
Mhm.
Yep, it's down right on the river.
Right. Yeah, I've read about the park. There's there are a lot of stories. Yeah.
Mhm, definitely.
Yeah. Well, one of the things when it comes to spirit attachments, people, spirits following people home. I think it's a mistake for a lot of people who go out to, on ghost tours or they go out with hunting groups or they have their own ghost hunting groups. I can't count the number of places, the haunted places that I've been, but I don't have attachments following me home because I don't go looking for ghosts.
Mm.
I am not a ghost hunter. I am a journalist. I'm a writer. I'm there to interview people and to get the environment, and I write about that. I'm not looking for ghosts. So I hope that means that's why they don't find me.
Sure.
Maybe it's about intention for sure. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, your stories are awesome. This is great. We're gonna have you on here again for sure.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. I'd be happy to. It's been been a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah. So just to back up to Putnam Memorial Hospital, like you said in your article, it was constructed in 1923. I don't know when it became St. Francis Hospital or when exactly it became Hillhaven Nursing Home. But Meadowbrook Nursing Home ended up closing in 1995. And like you said, everyone just picked up and left, or didn't pick up. They just left.
They just left.
Yeah. And then Ryan's mom worked there as a groundskeeper for a few years after it was closed. And so apparently it's still just standing. It's not open to the public. Or do you know if they're going to do anything with it?
It needed to be torn down when I was there. And that's been probably 15 years ago.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were inside and you said like you found, you know, desks and stuff and file cabinets with patient files and stuff in there, did you get to look at any of those? Was there any like anything in there that maybe showed maybe a few of the tragedies that happened in that hospital? Was there anything that you learned like that?
Well, I did go through some couple of files just to look at them, but there were so many. In order to go through them and find something like that, I would have, it would have taken me a month or more.
A long time, a lot longer than you had.
Work. Right. So, and I wasn't about to take any files or anything out of the place. You know, if you go to some place like that, don't take anything with you.
I think the less things you touch, the better.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, maybe we should have someone go through all the files though, so they can put more information on the internet.
I know that this was
about this place.
Yeah, we do obviously most of our research from the internet. Ashley had some books, but it was very hard to find information about this place for sure.
Even pictures. I was trying to find pictures of this place, and I found one cool one from like maybe 1910 or something. It is a very small building. And then I don't know if it was expanded on.
It was built on quite a bit. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I would definitely like to check it out. If you were to name like the top 3 haunted places in Missouri, what would you recommend? Just spitball.
Okay. Top 10. One is
top
I had
3.
some. Or
Did
top 3,
10?
yeah. 10. No, you said 3. You said 3 and I said 10. I don't know why I said 10. One, I had a couple of things happen to me while I was there. I'm going to say the Lemp Mansion, LEMP Mansion in St. Louis. Okay. The Lemp family had a brewery, and they competed with Anheuser-Busch until Prohibition hit. And Anheuser-Busch figured out how to still make money and not sell beer. And the Lemps didn't. So there was a lot of tragedy, suicides, and some other deaths there. And there's quite a few paranormal things happening there.
Actually, fun fact about that, when they stopped making beer, they figured out how to they survived on water. Like they were selling water.
Sold water and furniture. Yeah. That's one. Mark Twain Cave in Hannibal. There are a number of ghost stories from that, and it's just kind of cool to go through. And I'd say the battlefield in Springfield, Missouri. People still hear Civil War cannons going off there, and they see people in period costumes, and they will tell they will say something to the people who work there. Hey, the reenactors look great today. We didn't have any reenactors today.
What?
Wow.
I've heard a lot of stuff like that too. I kind of want to see it for myself.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, Jason, if anyone wants to check out your books and like stay on top of, what you're doing, where can they find your stuff, your website?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. All my books are on Amazon. Awesome. JASONOFFUTT. There are also links to all my books on my website, which is jasonoffit.com.
Awesome.
I'm also on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
I love it.
All right.
I'm following you right after this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Post all your spooky stories.
Thanks for the invitation. I had so much fun talking with you all. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I'm so glad that John and Gary recommended you, and we were just able to make this happen. Super cool. Next time, we are going to have another guest on here, a recruiter here at Atlas, and we are going to talk about Waverly Hills Sanitarium. So that'll be cool. I lied last time when Rich and Brian were on here. I said we were going to talk about Waverly Hills Sanitarium next, but we clearly did not. So we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Surprise.
In 1 week.
I thought about that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
surprise.
yeah, in 1 week, because we're releasing a new episode every week for the month of October.
Yep, every Saturday. So
Yay.
we will keep you posted.
Spooky fun.
All right.
Thanks, Jason. You have
All
a
right.
good rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare Horrors, brought to you by Atlas MedStaff. Just a reminder, we are not healthcare professionals. We are just fans of true crime, talking about some of history's darkest moments in healthcare. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.